Hey YouTube, welcome to another video from SkinnyMedic. I've got my friend Tactical Comms. I almost said Tactical Medic, but not Tactical Medic.
No, but my man.
Tactical Comms. Matthew here. Obviously, devastation happened on the island there, and that's pretty scary because there's nowhere to go. Like, you're stuck on an island. Like, we saw videos of people getting in the water, things like that. But super scary. Lots of rumors going out about what was going on at the time of the fires. Some of that's come to be true, and some of it's not true. And then, first reports of thousands of people were missing. Now we're kind of finding those are duplicates. And so now I think the last time I saw was a few hundred. So lots of lessons to be learned from this. So I brought Matthew here. We're going to kind of talk about that and what some things we could do to be more prepared. And not just for wildfires, but just for an emergency situation.
And I think, you and I, we talk a lot about preparedness, and I know on your channel, it's all about medical preparedness, and, you mentioned a little bit, and then on mine, it's all communications, but it all kind of ties into the same thing, and really and truly, I think we as individuals have to start with our own self-awareness, and I think one of the key things to any environment, any area, is just knowing what's going on around you, and I think about, when you and I, when we went to Waynesville a few weekends ago, we took some different paths and, just to see, where it goes. And I think that's critical. But in this case, the Maui fires, I've never been to Hawaii, so I don't know what it's like. But I can assume that it's a large tourist attraction. And so folks probably aren't thinking about disasters, and they probably wasn't thinking about the hurricane because it was a long way off, and which it was. And so when a fire started, what could you have done? And I go back to 2016 from the Chimney Top 2 fires, or what's more commonly known as the Gatlinburg fires, and some of the lessons learned there. So I know on your channel you spend a lot of time talking about being aware, and I think your catchphrase is you never know when you're going to be the first responder.
Sounds good.
So I reached out to you and said, hey, let's do a collab on some preparedness steps, things that we can do better. And I think one of the things that I would start off with, and maybe get some dialogue from you, is that preparedness and awareness at home. What are some things you think about when you think about just being here at the house on the compound?
Yeah. So one of the things that I am really big about is relationships, building relationships. Get off your cell phone. Watch the end of this video, but then get off your cell phone and talk to your neighbors. We are really big. We have a small community here, small road, small families. And so building relationships with my neighbors, just not going over the top like, hey, if the zombies land, what are you going to do? No, it's like, hey, let's just have fun and let's communicate, let's know each other by name and things like that. Like, I have a gentleman that lives across the street, an older gentleman. He's been helping me grow my garden. Like, he laughs about me doing some stuff out there, but he's like, hey, Dietrich, have you tried this? Have you tried this? Hey, do this. It's time to plant. Like, he's on it. He's looking at when the moon is, things like that. It's like, hey, it's time to plant. So just building those relationships. That way, if something happens here in my small town, I have resources and connections to reach out to. Your dad lives not far from here. His dad's a huge ham radio guy. We've laughed. We told this story before. But, I have local communications down, pretty much. I can communicate within a few miles securely and, not secure. Listen to the fire, EMS, police, things like that. I can communicate locally. But Matthew was like, all right, how are you going to extend that? He's like, you need to get into HF, you need to get your general license, things like that. And I was like, why do I need to be expert at ham radio when your dad is within walking distance? And I laughed. I was like, I have a carbon fiber tripod with a 308 suppressed. I was like, I'm going to send Gage to run down there as a little messenger and go, hey, what's going on over there? What's going on over here? And then if his dad needs anything else, we're right back. We can share that relationship. There again, so it's all about relationships. Building this relationship to help my family get good macaroni and cheese.
Oh, yes.
So for me, like, that's the big step, is even if you're in the city, like, start to get to know your neighbors and things like that. Way, if something does happen, a natural disaster, you have relationships already built that you go and help them, they come and help you. So before the disaster hits, start building relationships.
I couldn't agree more. And I think for me, the thing that I push is being wary of where you get information from. you know, when you have information local of people you know that you trust, and there's all kinds of buzzwords for that, but at the end of the day, it's just relationships, as Dietrich said. And so what I see is, I see a lot of people that base their trust 100% on what they see and read on social media. And that's not always a good source of information. And so what I like to do is I like to be aware of what's going on around me. I've done a couple of videos recently on using the National Weather Service that kind of gives you some good intelligence of what the weather's doing. You go back to the Maui fires, and you know that there's a huge wind, but the question I have to ask is how many people actually were aware that threat was there? How many people put two and two together? Okay, it's really, really dry. We've got forecasted 65-mile-an-hour winds. Now, we could see a wildfire. And what do I do? What's my escape plan? You know, we know that the information that's coming out now is that a couple of the roads were blocked and that they had to make some alternative routes. But did you plan for those alternative routes? So when you're going into your homes and in your environments, knowing the relationships, being aware of your surroundings, a good friend of mine, Todd, often says, 2 is 1, 1 is none. Having multiple ingress and egress routes. Just starting at your home. You would be surprised, and I'm sure you've seen it in our careers, how many times we've blocked a road, and people who've lived here their whole life don't know another way around. Yeah. Work in an accident scene and just lose their mind because they don't know how to get around that accident scene. We've seen that time and time again. So just, I think for me, that's what I push. And I know you guys have heard my story with my middle son when I was teaching him to drive. We were coming down, well, actually, I don't know if I've ever told it on video. It's in the book, but it's, my middle son
Which book is it?
It is Frozen Signals by Merlin Jackson.
There we go. We'll slide that one in on Amazon.com.
See, what Dietrich talks about mac and cheese and coffee, teaches me how to do videos.
There we go.
But, you know, Will was learning to drive, and Sunday afternoons we'd go for a ride. And so we rode to Greenville, and I was like, okay, we made a few stops. And I said, all right, take us home. We got him on 85 South, and he pulls out his phone and he hands it to me. I said, what do we do with that? He says, can you plug in home on my GPS? I'm like, what do you mean home on GPS? And he's like, I need to know how to get home. And it really hit me that his generation didn't know a life without technology.
Yeah, we told our kids, like, when we first started driving, we had to print out the directions from MapQuest.
Yes.
Like, you would go to MapQuest.com, put in, you had to follow it all by the piece of paper. So that's pretty crazy for you.
It is, and it really, I think it hit me and kind of drove me to do more of the comm stuff that I'm doing, because when you are so dependent on your cell phone, you know, what happens when that cell phone doesn't work?
Yeah, definitely.
And there's 1,000 things that could cause that.
So on the comm side, communications, you talk about the weather channel, weather radios, things like that. Even the channel, I don't remember what the frequency is right off, and you probably like to spit out.
162, 550.
There you go. So to have that information, to know what the weather's going on, things like that, we lose power quite a bit here, especially where I'm at. So having some backup power, some backup communications, even having a scanner to listen on. A lot of agencies are going to 800 megahertz, so it gets a little more difficult to listen to. You can still listen to them, which gets a little more difficult, a little more expensive. But still, like, having some sort of backup plan to get you information is important. Yeah. Reliable information is, that's important to you, like you said, because you can, like, I do a lot with data, and if you pull in bad data, you output bad data. So if I'm getting bad information, bad comms in, I'm going to output bad information and have a bad plan. So if I'm getting accurate information, what's going on out there, then I can build a reliable plan on how do I keep me safe, how do I keep my family safe, how do I keep my neighbors safe, and let's build out from there.
Well, you know, in the aviation world, we have a saying, aviate, navigate, communicate. And, you know, if you watch videos, you watch movies and stuff like that, it's completely the opposite. But the moral of the story is if something happens, fly the aircraft. Fly it somewhere, and then tell somebody where you're going. Well, the same applies to us in our home communications. You know, we need to aviate, navigate, communicate in whatever we're doing here. If we recognize that there is a threat, if that voice inside your head is saying, this is bad, you might want to do something. Do something. And then go do it. Go, you know, so many times we rely on and I'm not suggesting freelancing, but what I am suggesting is that sometimes an incident grows so fast that the responders can't keep up with the actual intelligence. And you talked about being data-driven. Yeah. We're very data-driven. And I couldn't imagine what it must have been like for those first responders on Maui who were already dealing with a wildfire to have a second start. and to have to start deconflicting that information.
I saw some news media where like basically like private citizens were taking firefighter in their own hands, like private tankers were dumping water on the side of the road. Neighbors were helping each other. So you're very right. Like there was another fire. I can't remember the name of the island, but they just had another island had another small fire, and they got aggressive with it. So neighbors started helping neighbors. Private companies started coming in and go, hey, we want to help the fire department. We're going to dump water on the side of the road, and start using our tankers for stuff like that. So we all got to come together.
We really do. And I think, one thing I've enjoyed out of our relationship is the strengths that we bring to the table, because when it comes to medical, you need a good driver. I'm your guy. And so I really rely on Dietrich to give me and my family good medical advice and good sound strategies, which, by the way, you would be. My wife's in nursing school now, and I was instructing her a little bit on how to take blood pressure.
That's funny.
Because she was struggling with it. Like, Dietrich would be so proud.
I got this.
But at the same token, the strengths that I bring to the table in the communications world, it kind of helps. No one of us is as smart as I am.
Definitely. So you brought some cool toys to play with?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that, and I'm just going to kind of pull them out here, is one of the things you mentioned about getting out, having, I don't know if we kind of mentioned it directly, but we talked about you're going to have to bug out. You've made the decision, hey, I'm getting away. And most of you know, if you watch my channel, I absolutely despise Bofang radios, but they have their place. And they're an affordable device, and for basic emergency communications, you really can't beat it for the money. I mean, I got to be honest about it. So I brought just a Bofang UV5R, but one of the things that I brought, a cool kit, is, and you've talked about, if you're inside your vehicle, you're not going to get the range that you normally get. So there's a company called Signal Stuff, and Signal Stuff makes some great affordable tools. The antennas are really, really flexible, so you put them in bags, they're easy to pull. But this is probably one of my favorite tool pieces. It's a magnet mount that you can actually go on top of your vehicle. When you bought your new Jeep, we worked through some antenna issues on the mobile install there. Well, by placing the antenna on the exterior of your vehicle, you get a much better range, you get much better reception, and it comes with a coax kit, and then when you buy it, we get a little adapter and the antenna, and it replaces the stock antenna of your radio, your UV5R. So we've got that. And the cool thing about doing something like it, and it doesn't have to be a Bofang, it could be an Anytone. My personal favorite in this line is a TYT. The TYT radios are great radios for the money. You can't beat them. But you can also listen to the National Weather Service. Let's see if we can go to So that's our local weather channel right here, and so you can hear that. You can also hear the Channel 3 project. You can hear the FRS, the MERS Channel 3s. Those, if you've got those loaded, those are great devices. Let's see, what else have I got here? I've got just an inexpensive one, scanner. You can tell it's inexpensive. I lost my battery back in. This is just a multi-band scanner. That if you're going to an area and you can afford to wait, this is a good tool to have. Radio Reference is a great resource. You can actually find frequencies in a particular area. If you're going on vacation, you're going on a work trip, go ahead and load those in your scanner before you leave. That way you've got them. Those are some great resources.
Yep. And I've got a scanner that you plug in. I don't remember the name of it offhand.
Home Patrol.
Oh yeah, you can plug in the zip code, which is pretty cool. I've taken it with me quite a few trips. And just punch in the zip code where I'm at, and then it automatically downloads the frequencies. You can listen to the local first responders there.
Yep, absolutely. And then I won't get the stuff out today, but I've made a couple of videos on decoding the weather facts data from the National Hurricane Center. It's mostly geared toward mariners. It's sorry, Dietrich, is for boaters. They're in the ocean, but anyway. It's mostly for mariners, but it does give some inland. So for us here on the East Coast and the Southeast, hurricanes are a real concern for us, as we just went through with Idalia, however you say it. And it gives you good weather information to know what's going on. If you learn about weather conditions, you know when a front's moving through. A real threat for us in our area is not so much hurricanes, but it's ice storms in the wintertime.
Yep.
And I think probably a good preparedness tip there would be using your alternative energy sources. I know you've done a couple of videos on some alternative energy sources.
Yeah, we have a whole house generator. We've got the small portable generators, and then we've got a couple of battery banks and stuff like that. So we definitely use them. And the whole house generator was expensive, but man, it was worth every penny when the power goes out.
It's pretty neat to see you sitting up on the hill, still light on the hill.
Yes. So, we've lost a couple times this summer, so it's still 95, 100 degrees outside, and God, we're gonna run the generator just for a few minutes, get the house back down to temperature, and then we cut it back off. So, but it's been nice not to have to suffer through the heat.
I think one of the things that we've seen in our career is people using generators improperly. They'll run them in the garage or run them at home, and anytime you're burning something that uses a fuel, it's going to give off carbon monoxide, and carbon monoxide is bad.
Yes.
It just doesn't work out for you.
Yeah.
But in the wintertime especially, we see a lot of fatalities from that. And so make sure you're doing some smart stuff. And being a career firefighter, I would be remiss if I didn't say, go buy a smoke alarm. Go buy like 10 of them. Those things are cheap. Put them in your house. Change the batteries every time the time changes. And,
So does it start beeping in the middle of the night?
Yeah. Oh, I forgot about that.
I thought that's where you were going with it.
No, man, I missed that.
So,
but yeah, change them when the time changes. It'll give you great. Action is always faster than reaction. So the earlier you've got a problem, the quicker you can solve that problem.
Awesome. Anything else?
I can't think of anything, man. It's great to be hanging out here. Beautiful weather, beautiful place.
Yeah, it's like mid-60s right now. So, but he'll be back next week. So it's kind of nice on the back porch. But so go check out Matthew's channel, Tactical Comms. I'll put a link down below to his channel. Go subscribe to his channel. He's got some great information on there on communication. So thank you guys for watching. You never know when you'll be the first responder. Remember, you need the right gear and the right training.